I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USA Watchdog. With me, a guest that's a regular. He's asked for a lot. I can tell when I need to have him back on. I start getting pinged on both USA Watchdog and on the YouTube channel. Hey, bring back Bill Holter of the Holter-Sinclair collaboration at JS Mindset. Bill Holter, thank you for joining us today from Texas.
Thanks for having me on again, Greg.
I want to start with your most recent article, or one of your most recent articles, and it's about going cashless. And you bring up the point that Europe wants to do away. They haven't done it yet, but they want to do away with the 500 euro note. Now Larry Summers on the other side of the pan, just almost in sequentially, says we should get rid of the $100 bill. You know, it's because of terrorists and evildoers and drug people and all that. And you have a different take on going cashless. You made a couple of great big points. Is it really all about fighting terrorism and fighting drug lords and people doing the drug trade?
That's what they'll tell you it is. I did make the point. Getting rid of the $100 bill or getting rid of cash to fight terrorism. Who funds or funded ISIS? Who started Al Qaeda? That's an empty argument that they're fighting terrorism, because there've been so many false flag events that they point to. As a matter of fact, if you look at what had gone on in the Middle East, we were not even bombing tankers. So you had ISIS funding itself from oil. It took Putin going in and blowing up the tankers. Now, finally, ISIS has got funding problems. So no, it's not about terrorism. It's not about the drug trade. It's not about tax evasion. It's really about capital controls. It's about corralling the public's funds into the banks. And then you go one step further, they've already put bail-in legislation into effect pretty much throughout the West. So what they're doing is they're ring-fencing your capital. If they truly do away with all cash and all your funds have to be in the banking system, then basically you're completely controlled. They can control whether or not you even have access to your account. So, I mean, individuals can be shut off because the state doesn't like them.
You're saying that the timing on this, and this is a really important thing that you pointed out in your argument, but your paper, I should say, your post, and that was people think this is going to happen right away. And you're saying, oh, no. It can't happen. It can't happen until something changes, until collapse. Explain that idea.
I don't think the public would accept it if all of a sudden, boom, they just flipped the light switch and they said, okay, that's the end of cash. For one reason, it would completely upset so many different businesses. Think about how many. Just pick a business like a diner that you eat breakfast at in the morning. That's primarily a cash business. So you'd have many, many businesses with huge problems. I really believe the populace would revolt, and it's not doable. I also don't. It will take some time to get this done, and I don't think there's enough time left in the markets to get it done. It's my opinion that the cashless society will result from either a war or collapse in the system. It'll be part of the new system. That's how they'll implement it. Is after something big happens.
Won't they hurt that GDP? I mean, aren't they worried about growth and all these bonds and growing our way out of this stuff? I guess after the collapse, a lot of the bonds will be gone, right?
Right. You're going to be seeing a complete collapse, so that won't matter. And if you're talking about GDP, they make these numbers up now anyway. Why would they not make them up in the future?
You're saying that after the collapse, it won't matter anyway. What do you mean by that? I mean, a lot of people are trying to get a grasp on what the collapse is going to look like next time, because I think it's going to. What you're saying is it's going to look different than '08 and '09, is it not? What does it mean when you say it's not going to make any difference with the bonds?
It's not going to make any difference because the whole system is going to collapse. In my opinion, we're going to have a bank/financial holiday where institutions are outright closed. You're going to see bankruptcies, just bonds going poof, going away. This is what 2008 would have been had the Fed not spread 16 trillion all over the world, and probably much more than that. We don't know.
Some people peg it at, Catherine Austin Fitts says 40 trillion.
Yeah. No. Who knows?
What's his? There's a professor in UMKC, University of Missouri, Kansas City. I can't remember his name escapes me. At late 2011, he pegged it at 29 trillion. It's
Right.
a lot of money.
Right, it is. And at this point, because of what the central banks have done since 2008, and because of what sovereign treasuries have done since 2008, now there's no white knight. Now there's no central bank or sovereign treasury on the face of the earth that can ride in and save the system like they did in 2008. They've already shot all their ammunition. They've pushed rates to zero. They've ruined sovereign balance sheets. There's no ability to reflate. That's what happened in 2008. All the money that came in reflated the system. Now we're back again to where we were in 2007, middle of 2008, on the verge of a collapse. And when the collapse comes, there's nothing there to reflate the system. This is going to be the greatest fear of central bankers. It's the greatest fear they've had ever since the 30s, is a deflation that they can't reflate.
And the cashless and the negative interest rates, that can only be facilitated because they're afraid of run-on banks and people hoarding cash and all this. You're saying that they're going to hope to do this before people, people like me and you are awake and people watching this, but that's still a small percentage of the global population who are worried about, the Broncos and the Panthers and Beyonce and, it's stupid and more stupid and this is stupid. And so, right? I mean, but you're saying that this won't happen until after. This is a way for them to recapitalize the banks by just, hey, the rates are negative, so we're taking your money. You had $100, now you have 98, or now you have it might be 95. I mean, they went from, when this Michael Pinto pointed out last time I had him on, he said we started at 5.25% when this started in '08, and we went down to a quarter. So, how far would they go into the negative territory, Bill?
Who knows? That's kind of a moot point. I say it's a moot point because if we are in a cashless society, where are you going to go? You can't get your money. You won't be able to get your money out. You mentioned about I forget what the word was that you used, but
rehypothecation or hypothecation?
No. To fix the balance sheets of the banks. They're going to do that through bail-ins. That's how the banks will recapitalize. That was the word you used. That's how the banks will recapitalize themselves, is through bank bail-ins. If they were to go to negative interest rates with a society that still has cash, then you'll have people pulling cash, and there's not enough available, obviously. They'd have people pulling cash out of their bank and putting it under their mattress. Because this is a two-step process. The first thought is, hey, if I put $100 in the bank today, and I know a year from now I'm only going to get $97 or $98, then why don't I just take it out, put it under my mattress, and it's still $100 a year from now? The second part of the process is these very central banks that are talking about doing negative interest rates, they're also telling you that they want to and they have to debase their currency. So that $100 in purchasing power a year from now may have $95 or $90 or $50 or whatever. So the second part of the thought process is not only will people take money out of the banks, but they'll go and they'll buy stuff. They'll buy antique cars. They'll buy paintings. You name it.
They'll buy things.
They'll buy stuff. Exactly.
Anything that's not paper.
Exactly.
What happens to people's 401ks and their stock accounts? I mean, they think it's a savings account. I have neighbors around here that think that, oh, we just had an 8% correction. That's all it'll be, right? And I said, that's, not according to people like Bill Holter and David Stockman. I mean, you guys are saying the same thing. You're on the same page as David Stockman, or he's on the same page as you, and it's going to get cut to ribbons. Tell me what happens to people's 401ks and retirements in this scenario.
Well, two things could happen. You see the markets, I'm not talking about just the stock market, but the credit markets, you watch paper assets collapse. But during a bank holiday, I seriously believe you're going to see sovereign treasuries, the U.S. Treasury, saying, what you had in your account, you've got to take 50% of that and buy our bonds. These are safe.
And you can cash them out in 5 years or 8 years or 10 years,
Right.
and then you'll get about 5 cents on the dollar.
Right. And the money is already corralled. I mean, the money's there and it can't go anywhere.
So it's a forced debt buying. So the
Exactly.
buyers of the real buyers of last resort are going to be depositors.
Well, yeah. I mean, the depositors are going to be chewed up, and their capital will go to recapitalize the banking system. They've already told you this via legislation. Why would all of these Western countries, all of Europe, why would they write or bother to take the time to write bail-in legislation unless they were going to use it? They're going to use it. And it is law now.
Bullard, St. Louis Fed president, governor, I think it's president, Bullard says that no more rate hikes. He was out this past week. No more rate hikes, and likely it'll be more QE if we need to. So that doesn't sound like the Fed thinks we're in a recovery.
Well, that's true rocket science. No more rate hikes. Look what happened with just one rate hike. I mean, they've knocked the wheels were coming off the car with just a quarter of a point rate hike.
Is this why we had that big spike in gold, that people in the gold community could smell blood, so to speak, and just started running in there, even though they knocked it back down? I mean, that's almost comical to what they're doing on the day the U.S. market is closed. They're knocking down gold, which is bizarre. But is that what that trade is? That people are waking up, and the wandering herd, a few of them have woken up and gone, uh-oh. Is that what's going on with gold?
If you go back, I think you'll see on a chart that gold and silver began their movement upward right about the time Japan announced their negative interest rates. Because the big scare was always, the Fed's going to tighten, which is ridiculous. I mean, even if they tighten to 3, 4, 5%, which they can't do because they'd kill the economy, that's still not competition for real money, because you're looking at a currency that's debasing by that amount per year. But negative interest rates are telling you got to get your money out of the bank because it's a guaranteed loss.
And you don't think Congress is going to stop? They gave Yellen some hard time when she testified in front of Congress, saying, "Hey, you don't have the ability to do that. You don't have permission to do that. That's not part of your deal." You're saying, "Don't worry about Congress," because what are you saying?
That's theater. The Congress is theater, telling her what she can or can't do. I mean, whether they have the authority to do anything, they're going to do anything and everything they can possibly do. Legal, illegal, overt, or behind the scenes.
How much time do you?
They discovered, I think it was in 2010, that the Fed lent out $16 trillion all over the world.
Yeah.
More than half to foreign businesses, foreign central banks, etc. Was that legal? I don't know, but did we know about it? Did they say anything about it? No. They're going to do whatever they are forced to to do, because at this point they're out of tricks.
How much time do we have before the system collapses, in your estimation?
Who knows? I mean, it could be tomorrow morning. I answer this by saying we should have collapsed by all rights 2 or 3 years ago.
Why are they propping it up? What's their game to prop it up? Why are they playing a game of extend and pretend? I mean, what are they trying to accomplish? They know they can't fix it. You and I know they can't fix it. They must know they cannot fix it. So are they just playing a game so they get prepped well enough to pull the plug, or before the plug is pulled?
I really can't tell you. I don't know what the plans are. I don't know whether it's this goes back to Robert Rubin's kick the can for 6 months and hope something good happens. Is it just grasping and trying to hold on to power? I don't know the answer to that.
You say, this is another timing thing. You talked about war, and you wrote a piece a little bit before the last one, and you talked to your major point in it. What I got out of it was we're going to have war because they're out of time. They're out of time. They're out of tricks. They're out of stuff. So look for them to flip the war card over on the poker table here.
The U.S. has been trying for 1.5 to 2 years to get a war started. You have to understand, the thought process in Washington is war is good. War will help turn the economy. It's also, and I've said this for probably 2 years or more, that war is something to point at. In other words, Janet Yellen can go up in front of Congress and say, our policies were working, and of course that will be said to the public, our policies were working, but then the war came along. And if it wasn't for the war, happy days would be here. So I truly believe they want to use war as a cover or something to point at.
And you think it's getting closer? I mean, Turkey is now blaming the Kurds and Assad. I mean, last I checked, the Kurds were fighting Assad. But now they had this big bomb go off. I don't know, 30 people or 28 people were killed. None of them were soldiers, in Turkey. And they're vowing to go after Assad and the Kurds, which are the U.S. allies, which just couldn't be any more concocted and convoluted and goofy. This whole thing. I mean, we've had trucks being sold out of Houston that go to Turkey that end up with a heavy machine gun mounted on the back, and ISIS heavy machine gun mounted on it. I mean, we've been funding, the U.S. money has been funding the rebels, the Free Syrian Army, which is maybe some. At one point, there were some real good guys there, but Al Qaeda and ISIS is picking up these weapons as well, and we've got to know that. So, are the people that will be starting the war? I mean, NATO is Turkey's a NATO country, and Saudi Arabia is supposedly one of our allies. And do you think we're pushing them to have war? And that this is crazyville? They're going to go up against, Syria, Iran, Hezbollah, and Russia. Right. Last I checked, Russia is a pretty significant military power.
Saudi Arabia has amassed almost, call it the vast majority of their military on the Syrian border. So you're looking at a pincer movement from Turkey to Saudi Arabia. It's my thought process that some type of a deal has been made where actually Turkey and Saudi Arabia will actually get diced up and parceled out. They're going to lose, in my opinion.
They're going to get nuked. Right. I mean, if it gets bad enough, Russia's not going to let their people get overrun. They're going to nuke them. They put a missile carrier, a state-of-the-art missile carrier in the Mediterranean Sea. You know they're loaded with nukes, multiple warheaded nukes.
Yeah, I really don't think they want to do that. I think
they will if they're going to get overrun and thousands of Russians are going to be butchered.
True, that's true. But from a conventional standpoint, it's my opinion that Turkey and Saudi Arabia will lose. Oh. Those countries will be parceled up. I think deals have been made.
Deals between who and who? Who are the deals? Between the U.S. and Russia? Between the U.S. and Iran? Who?
Name the countries. Between U.S., Russia, China, Israel, Iran.
That's you think the war will be? I mean, we're talking about a war of biblical proportions here. I mean, this is going to be big.
I view it as it's a potential trap for Turkey and Saudi Arabia.
Officially Saudi Arabia doesn't have nukes, but for years they said they were, getting nukes, buying nukes from Pakistan, funding them supposedly, and Turkey. I can't imagine them not having at least a couple. I think the whole thing could turn nuclear. You're going to fire everything, aren't you? If you're on the verge of losing.
Well, let me ask you this, Greg. Here we're talking about nukes being lit up. What would the financial systems all over the world do?
Couple crash hard.
No, they would close.
Yeah.
They would close.
And that's how you can get negative interest rates and
there's your bank holiday, and there's
capital controls.
Everything. Yeah.
Grim picture. You think this is all in your mind? This is all what you're seeing on the table now. That's closer than farther away, not years down the road. Weeks, months, days.
Yeah, days or weeks. It's hard to say, but you don't see the type of troop movements. You don't see the type of hardware movements that you're seeing now without something being very close.
You and Jim Sinclair are doing a new audio file. I'm changing the subject here, but I want to talk a little bit about what you guys talked about. You did about half an hour. I think you're going to have a paywall. You're going to have some subscribers listen to this, which I think is going to be valuable because it's like, John Lennon and Paul McCartney talking. And, it's kind of cool. So tell me a little bit about what you're going to be doing with this segment, and give me just a big bullet point, or one of the bullet points you talked about in your most recent thing, your very first one. I believe it came out late last week.
Right. We plan to do this once or twice a month. It's going to be roughly a 30-minute segment, and we've taken questions from readers. We're not making the questions up ourselves, although we did because of the timing of it. We did finish with a conversation regarding Justice Scalia's death.
That sounds fishy, doesn't it? It just sounds. I don't know if it's a conspiracy theory or not, but all the cases pending that would have gone against the Obama administration, his illegal immigration deal, tons of stuff that would have gone against him.
It's ridiculous. It could have been just a nobody, and out in the middle of nowhere in Texas, you would think that they would do an autopsy.
I know. It's he was pronounced dead over the phone. Bizarre. I mean, it's just kind of weird. Right. Maybe it's just that he had a big group traveling with him, though. It wasn't like traveling alone. He had like a couple of 2 or 3 dozen people traveling with him. So
yeah, I've been to Shafter.
You think it's shaky?
Oh, without a doubt. There's absolutely no reason to not do an autopsy. The guy who owns that ranch, I think his name is John Poindexter, a very big Democratic donor. One was given the Medal of Honor, I believe, from President Obama.
Really?
And he's the one who found Justice Scalia dead.
I know you live in Texas. You're in Houston. Of course, Texas is a big state. It's 1,000 miles across. He's on the western side. You're on the eastern side. It takes 24 hours to drive across Texas. People don't realize that. It does. I used to live in Beaumont. You think, wow, I'm Texas. I'm halfway across the country. 24 hours later, wow, I'm hitting El Paso. I mean, it's a big state.
This ranch was in Shafter, Texas. I've been to Shafter, Texas.
Where's that? What part of the state is that?
Far, far west and south. It's about 50, 60 miles south of Marfa, which is the nearest town.
It is secluded.
And there is absolutely nothing between Marfa and Shafter. And Shafter it's not even a crossroads. It's a place to stop. That's it.
So you're going to be able to come onto the site, and that's one of the many topics I'm sure you got brought up. You got smart people, so I know you're going to get smart questions in this. You have very, very intelligent people reading.
We had some very good questions.
Yeah, and you and Jim Sinclair tag teaming on that. Oh, that's fabulous. And this has already started. And you can find it on the site, and it's a pay type thing. Is that right?
Well, currently this was done, and it's on our public page. Within about 2 weeks, we're going to go to a dual site. There will still be the free to public site. We'll post articles of interest. On the premium side, you'll be able to find my work, and you'll be able to find Jim's comments to various articles. And also, like I said, once or twice a month, Jim and I are going to take questions from subscribers and just pretty much talk. That was the format, was just kind of kicking a ball back and forth.
Jim Sinclair, I've been reading this site for, I don't know, since I was at CNN, I was 05, 06, something like that, and his comments about news stories, golden. You learn a lot just from his one-sentence comments, his
right.
one-liners, 1 or 2 sentence. When he writes a paragraph, heads up, folks, you better read it. Anyway, listen, Bill Holter, thank you so much for joining us today on USA Watchdog and giving us your take on the cashless society, doing away with $500 euro notes and $100 bills, and that they won't have any kind of cashless society until after a collapse. Bill Holter, the Holter-Sinclair collaboration at JS Mindset. Bill Holter, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Thank you, Greg. My pleasure.